So with 2022 finally coming to a close, it's finally time to take a look at next year, 2023. And with the new year comes the annual ranking video of all the best coasters coming next year. This year is kind of an off year. Like, yeah, there are some good rides, but there's nothing that really blows my mind. Like, there's no Velocicoasters, there's no crazy wild card that could end the coaster world. It's just a pretty solid, but pretty by the books year. That being said, I'm still gonna rank them because I need some content, and it definitely is a unique year of rides. So I'm not gonna keep talking your ear off. I'm just gonna get right into the number 8 spot. This one is one of the weirder ones on the list. It's a Vekoma family coaster going to Dollywood, and it looks fine, nothing crazy, but it doesn't look bad either. It's just a solid addition. There's some launches, some bank turns, a couple of airtime pops, and then you hit the brakes. There's also this pretty cool rock thing that you fly through like towards the back end of the ride, and there's a water pop that when you're low to the ground is pretty cool. Whether or not that'll be on is up to Dollywood, but if it is, it's kind of neat. The thing is, I really don't know that Dollywood needs this coaster. There's just so many other coasters at the park that are basically this ride, but do it better. Fire Chaser Express is the prime example. This is basically just a worse version of Fire Chaser Express. They're both family launch coasters with regular sit-down trains that focus on sweeping turns and smaller airtime hills. The only difference is one goes backwards, and instead of fire for Big Bear, there's really just nothing this ride does better than Fire Chaser. Not theming, not layout, it's not even nearly as intense. There's legitimately no reason for this ride to exist. The only reason it makes this list is because a lot of other coasters kind of fall into this category too. Busch Gardens Williamsburg is getting an indoor family launch? What? Why? They already have Verbolten. Like, what? Why would they need this? I get that it's indoor, but like, big whoop, now you can ride it in the winter when no one's at the park. At least this Dollywood one kind of expands on the family section of the park. The BGW one basically does nothing. And the next one is also another example of these family coasters that are kind of pointless. Okay, this one is above Big Bear solely because it's an ever so slightly better ride, but this is arguably a stupider addition than the last one. Let me explain. This is yet again in a park that already has a ride similar to it, but here's the thing. Dollywood already has a pretty diverse selection of rides. You got an RMC Woody hybrid thing, you got this themed Grossflower Eurofighter, you got a wing coaster in the woods, you got a pretty good GCI. Like, it's a well-rounded lineup. Another family coaster adds nothing to the lineup, but it's okay because the lineup is already very solid. This park is pretty terrible right now. SeaWorld San Diego is far and away the worst SeaWorld park. Their lineup consists of a pretty mediocre dive coaster as the standout, a mock family coaster, and a Skyline Skywarp. Notice how I had to mention a Skyline coaster in their top 3. Other than that, they got a Skyrocket 2 clone, and that's it. This place is just down bad for some big rides. Everything is just so mid, so what does SeaWorld do? They had another family coaster. Yay. And here's the thing, this ride is basically Wavebreaker, so in theory it should work because it worked at SeaWorld San Antonio, but there's 2 issues. Number 1, SeaWorld San Antonio is already a very full lineup. They have Steel Eel as a strong headliner and supported with Great White and now Texas Stingray. San Diego doesn't really have that. They have one intense headliner, but even that is just a smaller ride. And yeah, I know they have a height limit or whatever, so you're working around it, but with Intamin, they can work around that. Like, imagine a Maverick-sized Blitz at this park. It would do wonders for this place. And it wouldn't clash with Manta because they're completely different rides. This one clashes with Manta because they have basically the same ride. The one reason Wavebreaker works is because there is water. Having the water underneath just adds another level of depth to the ride, both figuratively and literally. Like look at this and look at this. The difference is night and day. One looks like it's built at a SeaWorld park and one looks like it's built in the parking lot. Like, look at these rocks. These are stock rocks you add in Planet Coaster. I know it's just a concept rendering, but this is actually pathetic for what SeaWorld can do. Just a coaster slapped in a corner of the park. Like, this land could have literally been used for anything. I have no idea that a coaster is here. You could have picked a friggin' scrambler and put this coaster on the same land. It honestly baffles me how SeaWorld manages their parks. Like, SeaWorld Orlando has and continues to be the best lineup far and away. The coasters are actual large-scale rides built on or around water with original themes and original color schemes. Just what is this Arctic ride? Who asked for it? How will this benefit the park in any way? These are all questions that cannot be answered. It's just disappointing because SeaWorld has started working with Intamin again, and I thought we'd be seeing a lot more Pantheons, but instead we're getting this. Okay, this is definitely the weirdest one on the list, but it is way better than the previous 2. Whereas before, I was complaining that the rides were very uninspired and boring and the parks didn't really need them, this one is a very unique ride, unlike anything Worlds of Fun already has. I mean, yeah, there is Prowler, but this ride is just so weird that I honestly think they're in 2 different categories. First of all, there's this spiral lift, which is already a blast from the past. I say it like I was alive when spiral lifts were a thing. This is a first for wooden coasters and a first for just coaster in like a while, like since like the 60s or something. And then you have this wacky layout afterwards that doesn't look like anything GCI's done. It's not like a twister around itself, but it doesn't have an out and back layout either. It just kind of stays low to the ground and weaves in and out and occasionally pops up for an airtime hill. It's another family coaster, but since this park has more intense wooden coasters, it already makes sense. If Prowler was already a family GCI, then this would make no sense. But since it's not, this ride actually offers something different to the lineup, so it works. It's also great for Worlds of Fun, which already has a really solid foundation right now with an original B&M invert, a Morgan Hyper, and a Praise GCI. This just adds another solid supporter and only strengthens the park's line. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because this should have opened a long time ago, but if you want to hear my thoughts, then you'll have to go back to my best coasters for 2022. Nope, for 2021. It's that old. But it looks fun on the bikes. It's a good addition to Magic Kingdom, which hasn't gotten a new ride in almost 10 years, and the fact that it's a large-scale coaster is great for Disney. Okay, this is where they start to get really cool. This is the first of its kind B&M surf coaster that I made a completely separate video on, so if you want more depth, then go check that one out. But to summarize, I think this model looks pretty good. Not the intense launch coaster I was hoping for, but it does fix a lot of the problems that stand-up coasters have. Who asked for another stand-up coaster in 2023? I don't know, but they just did it anyways. But at least they're doing it right this time. I was also informed from the comments of the original video that the name Pipeline refers to the Banzai Pipeline, which is apparently one of the most famous surfing spots in the world. So I kind of shit on the name in the first video, but it's actually referring to something that's kind of cool, so I don't know. It works, is basically what I'm trying to say. Theming the surf coaster to surfing is kind of a cop-out because like all they need to do is put it near water, which is like everywhere in the park. So yeah, it's not a like amazing theme, but the name is cool and doesn't really need to be. Like yeah, Mako and Icebreaker are cool themes, but they don't really change the ride experience at all, and neither will this. This also means SeaWorld has 4 B&Ms, which is pretty insane if you think about it. One more and it's tied for the most B&Ms in one park. But again, I have a full video on this for my complete thoughts, and I don't really feel like reiterating that here. This is a cool one for a couple of reasons. First of all, this is the only ride in this list not going to the US, and it's going to Chessington Park in the UK. But more importantly, it's a ride heavily themed to Jumanji, hence the name. It's not confirmed, but it's heavily speculated that this is going to be a B&M wing coaster, and I just want to say this would be fantastic. Wing coasters are great rides to be themed around, and flying through the jungle around this big rock and trees just sounds amazing. On top of that, I'm sure there would be fire and mist galore, or at least I hope there would be, because it seems like it would really round out the ride. Now, there's not a whole lot known about this because it's really early on the planning stages, but we do know that there are some plans that show this spiral thing being around the big Jumanji statue, which would look really good from the ground. There's also this really low to the ground inline twist or zero G roll that would also be amazing, especially if it was like over a pond or something. And I do have faith that this will be well themed because it's a headlining attraction for a whole Jumanji land. Not like the park is taking a wing coaster and just slapping the Jumanji name on it. It's a fully fledged section of the park. But this isn't a massive wing coaster. It's a tamer one that's just really well themed. It's not a family coaster because like that, but it's not in the scale of like Thunderbird or Gatekeeper. It's just definitely more stomachable for non-coaster veterans. And the Jumanji theme is a really cool theme for a coaster. The whole Lost in the Jungle seems perfect for a wing coaster swooping around the uncharted territory. If they really want an extra credit, they can try and throw in some on-ride audio. They don't even need to get like the actors to say lines, just some music and jungle effects would be really nice. Also, apparently this is a shuttle coaster with 2 spikes. Like that would be a first for B&M, and it's weird that it's on a wing coaster of all things, but that also means you'll go through at least part of the layout backwards. I really hope that inline twist is part of it because that would be really sick. Overall, it looks like a really ambitious ride that I wouldn't be surprised if it got delayed, but when it does open, I have no doubt it'll be one of the best rides of that year. Wasn't this supposed to open last year? Like I remember seeing construction updates pretty early on in the year, so midsummer opening seemed plausible, but then it just like vanished out of nowhere, and now it's opening next year apparently. So again, like Tron, I have another video talking about it because it's delayed, except this time that is last year's video instead of 2 years ago. So check that out if you want to hear more about this because I'm moving on. Okay, yes, I kind of had a video on this too, but I talked more about Hershey Park as a whole in that video, so I kind of want to break down this ride specifically because I genuinely believe this will be one of the best RMCs. First of all, you have a pre-lift section. If you know me, you know I love them pre-lift sections. Then you go into that first drop that goes straight into one of these step-up underflips like on the Joker, except this one is huge. And I'm pretty sure this is WILDCAT'S original drop. It is that big. After that, you have this enormous airtime hill that looks like Storm Chaser's Violent First Zero, one of those twisted timber camelbacks. This seems like it'll be probably a highlight of the ride for a lot of people because you have a lot of speed from the first drop. There's also this crazy head chopper in it. Then you go into this little Outer Bank pop that just kind of throws you out there for shits and giggles. Then it goes into a wave turn that brings you into a 0G stalling. And here's the thing, I think RMC does these wave turns and 0G stalls the best. Like, they have perfected the tracking or whatever it is. Intamin has gotten good at the stalls, but their wave turns just do not hit the same. Speaking of wave turns, you do one more, then hit a double down. And it's at this point you'll notice the coaster is beginning to lose a little steam, or at least the rendering is. But RMC, being the genius company that they are, uses to their advantage with hang time filled downward 0G roll, followed by some turns into another low to the ground 0G roll into the brakes. Obviously, that's a simplified version of the layout. There are airtime pops and banks here and there that I glossed over, but for the most part, that's the ride layout. And I'm just gonna say it, I think this will be the best RMC after the Hyper Hybrids. It just looks better than all the other ones. There's nothing that this ride doesn't have that another ride has, except Air Force One, which has a massive outer bank. But honestly, those things are a little overrated. Steve's was good, but it's not as good as it was hyped to be. And this still has a massive airtime moment. They're just straight on, which I prefer. It gets a ton of cool inversions. It's got really good pacing. It's got a long ride, which is not super common for RMCs. And it's one of the more unique layouts in a while. It doesn't feel like a combination of XYZ RMC like a lot of them recently have beginning to feel like. Also, like I said in the separate video, this will do wonders for Hershey, so go watch that video if you want to hear more. Anyways, that's going to wrap up the video on the 8 best coasters for 2023. Let me know what you guys think and which one you're most looking forward to riding. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.